this session is looking at the Aderyn public tools. I'll just quickly introduce myself. I can see lots of familiar faces there, so I'm sure I've met quite a few of you, but for anybody who hasn't met me yet, my name's Jo Milborrow. I am the data officer at BIS, so I deal with all the data coming in and out of the centre. So I'm going to give you a quick chat on what Aderyn is, so the basics of what it is and what it can do for you. And then I'm going to do a bit of a demo on the website itself. So if you just listen along for the moment whilst I introduce it, and then if you want to, whilst I'm doing the demo, you're welcome to follow along and have a look at the website on your computer as you go, or you can just watch what I'm doing, whichever you prefer. Okay, so we'll get started. So what is Aderyn? Aderyn is the Biodiversity Information and Reporting Database. So that spells bird, and bird in Welsh is Aderyn. So that's where the name comes from. It's a searchable website displaying all the wildlife records from Wales that are held by the 4 local environmental record centres in Wales. So the 4 record centres pool all of their data together into this massive database. And Aderyn is where it's made available for people to look at and to search. It covers all of Wales. It's bilingual, so you can use it in Welsh or English. And it has 16 million wildlife records. It's getting close to 16.5 million wildlife records now. And it's based on various levels of access. So I'm going to look at those in a second. And you can find it with that link at the bottom of my slide there. But if you put into your search engine Aderyn Lurk Wales or Aderyn BIS, it will come up for you. So those various levels of access. Today we're going to look at the public access. So that is available to anybody to use. They just go to the website and you can use it. There's no need to log in. You don't need to register. And for that reason, some sensitive information is removed from that public access. It's so that we can make sure that the right people have access to the right level of information. So, for example, sensitive species will be removed from the public access. So there's a list of species which NRW set kind of in conjunction with the experts on species that actually that information shouldn't be out in the public domain. And for the same reason, other information such as recorder names is removed from the public access as well. So then there's various other levels of access that the record centres can grant to various users. So we might grant access to consultants working on planning applications, and likewise to the planning ecologists working for the local authorities, so that they can search for records within the area of a planning application. We grant access to the county recorders. So we heard from Norman earlier, he's the county moth recorder for Breconshire. So he has access to all of the moth records in Breconshire through Aderyn, so he can jump onto the website and have a look at all the records for moths. And we also grant access to the wildlife trusts and other conservation organisations, so they can have a look at all the records in their reserves. And then also to other partners. So this tends to be things like statutory bodies and local authorities. So perhaps the national parks or NRW. So they can use the site. They have another level of access where they can view the records. At the public access tools, and there's actually some really useful, quick and easy tools in here. So even if you already have another level of access to Aderyn, so perhaps you're a county recorder for a certain taxa, so you can see all the records for your taxa. Well, actually using the public access tools means that you can have a look at some other taxa or another region of Wales. So they're really handy to know about, even if you're already using another part of Aderyn. So there's 3 tools we're going to cover today. The first one is what's in my area. And this gives you a species list for any 1 kilometre square in Wales. It's really handy if you're like off on a walk somewhere, or you're visiting family elsewhere, or you're going on holiday elsewhere in Wales. You can just have a little quick little look and see what's been recorded in that square. So it's nice to know what might be about, what you might see. It's also nice to know what hasn't yet been recorded, things that you might see when you're there and you can make a record of. The second tool is the distribution maps. So that lets you build a distribution map for any species for the whole of Wales. So if you're interested in a particular species and even a species group, so maybe you're looking at dragonflies and you'd like to know what are the hotspots, you can build a distribution map for the whole taxon group. And the third tool is a Taxon Dictionary. So that's also quite handy. You can check spellings of scientific names. You can check if there's a common name for something, if you usually use the scientific names. And it also gives you the Welsh names. So that's also really useful to know about. Okay, so I'm just going to stop my screen share and then I'm going to jump onto the website. So bear with me a sec whilst I swap my screens over. I'll just give that a little moment to load. There we go. So hopefully you can see the Aderyn homepage here. So this is the page you'd come into from that link, or if you just search for it in Google. I'm not logged in here, so anybody can see these pages. So I'll go through a demo of the three tools. So we'll start off here with what's in my area. That loads up. And then I can search for a 1 kilometre square in various ways. So this is going to give me a species list for any 1 kilometre square in Wales. I could zoom in on this little map, pan around, work out where it is I want to visit. And then if I click on the map, just give it a moment to load. Then it's going to select that 1 kilometre square. There we are, it's selected a square near Llangarrig. And I'm going to click this green button to go. And it's going to go off. It's going to look at all the records for that square. And it's going to bring back a species list for me. So here we are, it's done that. It's telling me there are 478 records in that square of 270 different non-sensitive species. So because this is the public access, it's not going to tell me any of the sensitive species. This little red box is just reminding me of that, and I can actually pull up a list of all the sensitive species. So this is a list of the things that are excluded from that square. So even if they were there, it's not going to tell you about them. It's mostly breeding birds, bats, some other mammals, and a few plants. But you can check that list there. And then as I scroll down, here we are. This is the species list for this 1 kilometre square. So I've got species name, taxon group, how many times it's been recorded in that square, and when the first record was and when the last record was. It's quite useful information. Any of these columns that have this little sort of grey arrow icon, I can click on that and it'll sort the column for me. So I've sorted that on the taxon group because that just makes a little bit more sense to me. So it's put all the birds together, so that's quite nice. And I can see that there's 2 records of spotted flycatcher from 2017 and 2019. Can also, as I sort of look down, think, some of these records are from quite a while ago. If this was a square I lived in or near or I was visiting, then I'd sort of make a note of that and think, right, I'll make some more recent records of those. Got another little option here, a search box. So I could search for a species to see if it's on that list. So I've just popped in robin and it's brought up robin. It's telling me there's only 1 record of a robin in that square and not since 1999. So quite an old record. It's also brought up ragged robin because that's got robin in the common name. Another handy little thing on this page, got a green download button here. If I clicked that, that would download the species list as an Excel file to my computer. So then I've got it, I could save it, I could print it out, I could send it to my phone if I wanted it when I was out and about. So that green download button is a useful one to know about as well. Right, I'm going to pop back to the home page and I'm going to go back to what's in my area. So we used the map last time to build ourselves a species list. I could also, if I knew the grid reference, I could put the grid reference straight in the box. It will also accept a postcode. So I've just put in the postcode of the BIS office there, click go, and it will calculate the equivalent 1 kilometre square for me. So there we go, it's done that. So this is the square of the centre of Brecon where our office is. And then I've got the same information. So it's telling me there's 8,500 records within that square. And I've got my great long species list for that square there. Okay, so that is what's in my area. The next tool we're going to look at is the distribution maps. So here we are, we'll go to the distribution map tool. And this tool will build me a distribution map of any species for the whole of Wales. For those sensitive species that I mentioned, it will build me a distribution map at 10 kilometre resolution. For any species that isn't on that sensitive species list, I can then drill down into that and make myself a 1 kilometre distribution map, so I can get a bit more information for the non-sensitive species. Various different ways of choosing what species I would like. I find the easiest one is to use this wildcard here. So that lets me type in a species name. So I'm going to look at Tyto alba, which is barn owl. And it's telling me that there's 3 occurrences of Tyto alba in our species dictionary. And it's asking me, well, which one of those 3 do you want to build a species list of? I've got 2 subspecies down here, and I've got the actual species here. The numbers in brackets are how many records there are, so sometimes that's a nice little indication. So I can see, well, there's 9,000 records of Tyto alba, and there's only 1 record of each of those subspecies. So I know I want this occurrence, and I click the nice green arrow there, and that will build me a species distribution map. So here we are, it's telling me there's 9,341 records. The red box is a little warning just telling me this is a sensitive species, so it's not going to show me a 1 kilometre map, it's only going to show me a 10 kilometre map. And then I've got my map with various different colours within the squares. So the blue squares, there's fewer records, and the red squares, there's the most records. I can roll my cursor over any of these squares and I'll get a little pop-up. Hopefully you can see that. And that tells me how many records there are in each square. So that's quite useful. This blue square, there's 2 records. If I rolled over this red square here, there's 228 records of barn owl, and that's actually Llangorse Lake is in that square. So we can see why there's lots more records there. Another useful little thing it can do, if I scroll down to the bottom of the page, I can set a date range. So maybe I'm only interested in the most recent records. So perhaps I'll put in 2018 to 2021. I can click the refresh button and it'll go away and it will just bring back the most recent records between 2018 and 2021. There we are, and same thing again, I can roll over the square. It's telling me now that really busy square has now got 34 records from the recent years. So that's quite a handy little bit to know about. I'll just go back to the distribution maps. So that one was for a sensitive species, barn owl. I'm going to build one now for a non-sensitive species. And I'm going to choose black bryony. I can't remember its scientific name, so I'm just going to type in the common name and it will find it for me. So if we build a map of that, it's a nice species to be looking out for at the moment. It's one of the ones on our autumn recording challenge. So it's something we're trying to get some more records of. So here we are, we've got 5,342 records in Wales. And here's our distribution map. So same thing again, I can roll over the square and it tells me how many records there are. And you can see this time it's giving me an extra little option to build a 1 kilometre map. So I'll click that. It will take a little moment to think about it. It's actually the base map takes a moment to load on this page. But this is going to show me how many records there are in each 1 kilometre square for that 10 kilometre square. So here we are, we've got a map of Welsh Pool and we can roll over it again. It's telling me how many records are in each of those squares. So for the non-sensitive species, we get a bit more information. You can kind of drill down into that 10 kilometre square and have a closer look. One other little thing we can do with the distribution maps, we've been using the wildcard. We can also use this supergroup option here. So maybe I'm interested in ferns and I want to see a map of all of the fern species for Wales. Then I can choose that from the drop downs. And this is going to build me a map of all of those species across Wales. So there we are, it maybe starts to show me some hotspots or places where things haven't been recorded. So depending on the taxon group, you can get a bit more information using those maps. Okay, so that's our second tool. And the third tool that we're going to have a look at is the Taxon Dictionary. And I get to that by clicking this little drop down and it takes me to the Taxon Dictionary. And here we can see the page brings up a big long list of all of the species, all of the subspecies, all of the hybrids, genuses, all of the kind of levels of taxa that we can use within our database. When the page first pops up, it's this sort of great long list that's in no particular order and might not be all that useful. If I use this blue search button here, now I can start to search the Taxon Dictionary, and this is where it kind of might become a bit more useful. And I could search on scientific name, or I could search on common name. So we'll just pop a couple of things in to show you what information it will come up with. So I searched for magpie as a common name, and it's brought up everything that has the letters for magpie in the common name. So we've got the moth, it gives you the taxon group as well. It's got the other moths, the other magpie moths. There's a fungus, and then it's got the birds as well. So Eurasian magpie is the common bird that we're thinking of. And it shows me how many records there are in the database. So these numbers in brackets show us how many records. Some of these are not recorded in our area. Then I get two little green buttons. So this first one gives me some more details about that particular taxa. So here I've got the RTVK. Sometimes that's useful to know. This is a unique ID for that particular taxa, and it's used across the UK in lots of different databases. We've obviously got the scientific name, and this is where you can get the Welsh name as well. So it's quite nice sometimes to be able to get the Welsh name. And the other little, oops, I just got a little pop up there. The other little button I get here is to build a distribution map. So same as what we were looking at just now, I can build a distribution map for any of those species that I've found through the Taxon Dictionary. I'll just have another search of the Taxon Dictionary. Searching on a scientific name here, just to show you that it comes up with kind of all of the hybrids and subspecies. So that can be quite useful for unpicking kind of some of the different names. This is based on the UK species inventory, which is maintained by the Natural History Museum. So this is the same as what David Roy mentioned earlier. So we base all of our naming on that, and it does lag behind some of the schemes and societies. So it does lag behind things like BSBI, BMS and things like that. But it means that we can be consistent across all the recording databases are using the same names. Okay, so that was our 3 tools. I'm just going to stop sharing this and I will hop back into my little presentation-y bit. So we have had a look at the 3 tools. There's also at the bottom of any of those pages in Aderyn, there's a little link to our help pages. So if you sort of forget what you're doing, if you scroll to the bottom of a page and find the help, that takes you through to some videos we've done. They're all on our YouTube page